Good morning. This webinar offers closed captioning. To enable closed captioning, click on the live transcript button on the bottom of your screen and choose your preferred method. Welcome to Chicago Department of Business Affairs Consumer Protection webinar. Please note, any website or email that I mentioned will be posted in the chat for those seeking business license assistance. You can visit us here at City Hall in the Small Business Center or call 312-74-GO-BIZ. Also, business license can be applied for or renewed online at chicagobusinessdirect.org. If you are part of the BACP Entrepreneur Certificate Program, you get credit for joining this webinar by sending an email to bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. To learn more about this program, please visit chicago.gov/business education. This webinar is being recorded and will be available at youtube.com/Chicago BACP. We encourage all attendees to ask questions. Please use the chat box to send your questions. There will be a Q&A session at the end of this presentation. Please note that the views, information, and opinions expressed during this webinar are solely those that are presented and does not necessarily represent the official policies and positions of the Department of Business Affairs, Consumer Protection, and the City of Chicago. At this time, I'm going to now turn this webinar over to Donna for us to begin.
Hi, I hope you can hear me. I just got a message that I was muted. I thought you were going to unmute me, but it's a pleasure to be here.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. All right. Just want to make sure because I am doing this remotely. It is wonderful that you post this later on YouTube, because I will say I've sent clients to find it so that if you need a refresher or you need to catch something again, it's posted on your channel. I will also say that at the last slide of this presentation is an email address, how to contact me if you have special information. So let's begin. I'm doing slide down, but it's not going down. Why is the slide? It was working before. Slide down. I have a feeling you cannot stop your video. Okay. Why is the slide down not working, Stella? Help. Help.
Donna, did you need me?
Yes, the slide down is not working, and it was working before.
Okay, hold on.
You have the video off, and I don't know if that's why or... It was working.
Okay, give me 1 second.
All right. So are you going to have to change the slides, or am I going to be able to? Oh, no. Well, it's working for you, but how about for me? Oh, no, now it's working. Okay. Yep. All right. We're good. All right. So this is me, and I've been in business since 1988. Originally, I did advertising and sales promotion materials. And then through a fluke, I wound up helping small business owners. And I've done that since 2003, so still a long time. So hopefully you'll enjoy this. I want to say by beginning, there is a book by Eric Rice and Alexander Osterwalder. It's called The Business Model Generation. And these handouts are also going to be posted by the Department of Business Affairs. And the business model generation, get the book from the library. by Alexander Osterwalder. And because it says, don't use this as an ebook. It's not good as an ebook, but there's also a handout called the Business Model Canvas. And it helps you organize your thoughts. It's in 9 segments. They tell you to use sticky notes to decide what you need to put in each segment. And you can sort of pre-plan your business plan before you start typing it. So that's a good thing to use. And when we talk about writing a business plan, it consists of an executive summary, a business description, a product or service description, a marketing plan, an operations and management plan, and financial plan. And even though the executive summary comes first, write it last. So this plan and the outline for the plan is also posted by BACP. It's a series of questions. There's hundreds of questions. And if you answer each question in a complete sentence, you wind up with a business plan. But so just when you do the executive summary, leave a blank page, because it's much easier to write it and write it concisely, because it's usually only a few paragraphs that includes your product service description, your target market, audience description, your overall goals and objectives for your business. And when we're talking going forward, you can use product or service interchangeably, because you might be inventing a new product. There's always a reason to invent a better mousetrap, or it could be a service. You could be opening up bakeries or car repair places or laundromats or dry cleaners. So you can use it really interchangeably in this lecture. So describe the business in detail. Include the business name and include the location and the legal structure. And, is it a sole proprietorship? Is it a simple partnership? Is it an, LLC? Is it a C corporation? And you and your lawyer and your accountant should decide what's the best way for you to go, because you choose the form of your legal business structure based on taxes and your exposure to liability. So that's what you need to discuss with, but I'm not qualified to tell you, you need your lawyer and your accountant. And then describe why your business is unique. And we'll talk more in a few minutes about your unique selling proposition. But it's important, what big problem are you solving? Because, and really, if you have a small business, a bakery or a coffee shop or a dry cleaner, if there's none in your neighborhood, that can be what it makes it unique. Nobody wants to drive a mile or a mile and a half to take in their shirts to be laundered. So, your uniqueness just is that there's none in your neighborhood. And surprisingly enough, even though Chicago, I want to say it started in 1837. Don't hold me to that. I've lived here my whole life, but I should know better. But, a lot of the city is being rebuilt as they take commercial areas and then turn it into residential areas. So, it might have been a commercial area where there were no dry cleaners, there were no coffee shops, there were no bakeries. And so if that's what you're opening up, that can make it unique. And describe why your business will succeed. What is your product or service? Summarize the key technology or concept or strategy that, your business is based on. And, that can be just that there's none there, or it's a new technology, or you're using blockchain in a new way, or you figured out a new delivery system. Uber was unique. There's nothing unique about taking people from point A to point B. Taxis probably existed in, ancient England before America was even discovered, but it's just that it's unique to the area. So it's new, it's a new strategy. And then also, what features and benefits does your product or service have? And when you talk about features and benefits, you should talk about features as fab. the feature, the advantage, and the benefit. So the feature, it's convenient, you're in the neighborhood. The advantage, you don't have to go far to get that good or service. And the benefit is that it's convenient. So that's what we talk about with FAB, features, advantage, and benefits. How does your product or service satisfy your customers uniquely? And that's what we talked about. It's called unique selling proposition. And what makes you so different? What is the problem? And what is the solution that you're offering? And describe why somebody would buy from your business. And convenience is a big driver. Americans are pressed for time. So many are running a household, raising kids, holding down a full-time job. And so convenience can be a huge, unique selling proposition, just that you're in a neighborhood. Look around, what does not exist? Is there no wine store? Now, selling liquor has special requirements in the city of Chicago, probably in most cities, where you can't be near schools and you can't be near churches. But, and there's a footage, how many feet away you have to be from a church or a school. But, sometimes if there's no liquor store in a neighborhood, that can be a huge benefit, even if you're just selling and focusing on everyday wines and beers, just so, you're near a bus stop, you're near an L stop, and it's just the convenience of it. So why would a customer buy from your business? And then define in your detail. And there's also a competitive analysis that is available that I've posted online. And discuss your competition. Who are your direct competitors? And who are your indirect or alternative competitors? And when we're talking about direct competitors, if I'm Pepsi, my direct competitors are RC Cola, Coca-Cola, store brand colas when you buy Kroger brand colas or Jewel brand signature colas. So those are my direct competitors. And then my indirect or alternative competitors would be milk, juice, watered, waters now, smart water, flavored waters, carbonated waters. I mean, there used to be nothing. And then all of a sudden, carbonated waters were all over the map. It starts with one and then there's knockoffs. So you also have to think about how easy is it to replicate your product, even though some of them are slightly different. They're carbonated, but they have vitamins and they have caffeine. I will say I have tasted Coke with coffee, didn't do anything for me, but so you have to know your direct competitors and your indirect or alternative competitors, because you might have a fine dining restaurant or a family-friendly restaurant, but your competitors are the coffee shop where you can get a sweet roll or an egg sandwich to go. So really think about your competition. And then also, what's the positioning of your product? And when we talk about the positioning, we talk about good, better, best. I never recommend that somebody be the lowest price in town, because even McDonald's and Wendy's duke it out, and Burger King. It's very hard to make money if you want to be the cheapest one in town. And eventually you go out of business. So you can be on par with the competition. You can be better than the competition. You can be the best of the competition. A friend told me this the other day at Thanksgiving, and I don't know if I have no reason not to believe him. He happens to be a venture capitalist, so I have reason to believe that he knows what he's talking about. But he said to put the vodka in the vodka bottle only costs about 17 cents. So to make vodka, a fifth of vodka, it costs 17 cents. And yet there's Grey Goose that is a super premium brand. So, you don't necessarily price your product. A Lexus isn't that much better than a Toyota, but it's the mystique about the product. So if you can charge more and get away with it, be my guest, it's a great strategy. You know, there isn't that much difference between a burger at a good restaurant versus a fast food, but the good restaurant has to charge for the ambiance and that you're eating on dishes, and maybe there's a tablecloth if you go to Capitol Grill. So, you know, all of a sudden it's a $25 burger instead of a $7 burger or a $12 burger. So if you can charge more for it and get away with it, be my guest. It's a great strategy. Define the product packaging, and sometimes you are the package. If you're a real estate agent, if any of you have ever bought a home or a condo, when they show up, they're driving, you know, a modern car, it's impeccably clean, they're dressed to the nines, because they want you to know on first sight that they are going to help you find your dream home. They are so successful. And the reason they're so successful is because they have everybody find their dream home. And that's why they're impeccably dressed. But also you can be the product packaging if you're, you know, an employee at Target or Best Buy, so that people can identify you, and it's free advertising. So if you have the neighborhood auto repair shop, you want people to be wearing shirts and clothes and jackets that have your name. It's free advertising. Same thing if you have the local bakery and you have a bunch of different people working in the front of the shop selling baked goods, you know, their aprons ought to have your name on it and a website or some other advertising message. And then packaging is important too, because think about Dean's Milk Jug or Campbell's Cup of Soup or Tide Pods or dishwasher pods or mac and cheese cups. And I guess there's a big controversy now where somebody's suing Velveeta because they're saying it takes more than 3 minutes to make the mac and cheese because you have to open the package. I think it's sort of a frivolous lawsuit and will get thrown out of court because there's a limit to how, you know, you would include opening a package. You can't even eat cornflakes out of the box unless you open the package in the inner package. But even discussing cornflakes, the inner package that keeps the product fresh is important. So you have to think about packaging. And Dean's Milk Jug, Dean's was originally a Chicago company. I believe it's been sold, so somebody else owns it now. But they invented the small bottle that fits inside a cup holder. Because you can't see me now, but if you look me up on LinkedIn, I'm a more mature Chicagoan. And when I was growing up, milk came in little tiny cartons. Sometimes the way cream still comes, heavy whipping cream still comes in a small carton. But that's how small packages of milk came. And you couldn't put the box of milk in a cup holder. So soccer moms started to switch giving their kids juice and water because it was easier to travel with in a car. And then Dean's invented the milk jug, which is the small round bottle that fits the cup holder. But even Tide Pods and dishwashing pods, I mean, it's revolutionized how people do laundry or wash their dishes. So packaging is very important. And then think about where your business is located and if it's critical. If it's a home-based business and you always go to a client, it doesn't matter. You know, if you're an accountant and you go to the client, or you're some kind of small business attorney or an estate planner. I have client and I encouraged her to start the business, and she does borrow, she has partnerships with big law firms downtown if she needs to borrow an office to have somebody sign a will or an estate plan. But basically she works out of her home because she is a woman, and seniors trust to let her in because she goes to a lot of clients' homes to help them figure out their wills and estate plans. So it doesn't matter that the bulk of her business is run out of her den at her home. there are special IRS rules because you can, if you live in a 2,000 square foot home and you have an office that's 200 square feet, you can deduct from your income taxes 10% of the electricity, 10% of the mortgage, 10% of the heating costs. But you, in theory, you're never supposed to have a TV or a bed in the part that you claim as an office. But like I said, if you always go to your client, it doesn't matter where you're located. On the other hand, if you have a retail office, one more thing, because we used to do this lecture live, I don't know how many of you are women. If you are women and you live alone and you don't live in a high rise that has a 24-hour doorman, and even if you do, I strongly recommend that you go to a UPS store, and I do not own stock in a UPS store, but when you use a UPS store, you can have a street address for your business. And, your PO box is really your suite number. And it's just good because you don't want people coming to your home, especially if you are a woman living alone. Although it makes good business sense for a lot of you that are running businesses out of your house. Like I said, especially if you don't live in a high rise with a 24-hour doorman. Now, here's where we talk about, is a location important? The little red arrow that you're seeing on the screen that says point A, and then there shows a green arrow, that is a Dunkin' Donuts. And it's one of the most revenue generating Dunkin' Donuts. It's certainly in the state of Illinois, and it may be in America, but it's at Eola and Aurora Road. And the reason it's so important is because traffic is so terrible at that intersection. So a lot of people go in it just to get away from the red lights or to turn around and come out the other side. So it's huge in the morning just because it's easy in, easy out access. So location, 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 there it's very important. And in the next slide, this is an industrial park where A is marked. And if you were an accountant or a small business attorney, and you typically went to your clients, or like an accountant, they only came to see you once a year and you had well-defined directions that you could say coming from the east, coming from the north, coming from, the Eisenhower, coming from the Kennedy, that would be fine. But that was a retail clothing store. And it went bust almost immediately because it had no visibility from the street, none. And people couldn't find it. And there was no impulse buys. And the only other people driving to the industrial park regularly were delivery people with, raw materials for the other people who manufactured things in that office park. So, in that sense, location is incredibly critical because you need street traffic, you need foot traffic. And before, use this is important to know, you need a commercial real estate agent when you're renting a commercial property, and never be high pressured into signing up on a lease till you've absolutely done your homework and you've sat in the lot and you've checked what kind of traffic there is. Try to go in strip malls with convenience stores and grocery stores and the post office, things that generate great traffic, a McDonald's, a Burger King, a Wendy's. You want foot traffic if you're going into a commercial area or a neighborhood that has, one little shop after another. You want great foot traffic, and you want to be next to the dry cleaner or next to the, Quick Mart or next to the liquor store even. So it's very important. But also when you sign a commercial lease, show it to your attorney, because a commercial lease is not like a residential lease. And however the condition is when you sign that lease, that's exactly what you get. You get no more or no less. So if you want carpeting and it's just a cement slab, it has to be specified in the lease. The other thing you need to know, say you need a build out, and it was a clothing store. You don't need too much more built out because you're going to make it another clothing store. Just know that if you can convince the landlord to do the build out, first of all, he probably owns many properties. So he probably already has a stable with the electricians, the plumbers, whatever you need, the drywallers, etc. You are better off paying more in rent and having him do the build out than you doing the build out and paying less rent. And the reason is because when he does the build out and he charges you, say it's going to be, $1,500 a month, but you've signed a 5-year lease and it's going to be $1,650 if he does the build out because it's $100,000 build out. If you pay the higher rent is fully deductible from your business expenses. If you pay the $100,000, it's probably going to cost you more because you're not going to be as familiar hiring good electricians and plumbers and drywallers and painters, etc. So it's probably going to cost you more. But the real reason you don't want to pay the $100,000 is you can only amortize it for 27 and a half years. So say it was $100,000 and it was 25 years, because it's easier for me to do the math in my head. That means you could only take out $4,000 a year, and you have to hope that you stay in that location for 27 and a half years. And if it's a restaurant or a coffee shop, you might outgrow that place. If it's a retail store, you might start taking in more merchandise where you're going to outgrow it, and you're not going to stay there 27 and a half years. So you're going to be leaving lots of money on the table. So really, you need your lawyer and your accountant to help you with the commercial lease. I just point that out. You'll need a marketing plan. How we talked about how will you price your product or service? Will it be lower than, which I never recommend, on par, or higher than? And I strongly recommend being much on par, and I really love when you can be higher than the competition. And so think about what you're doing and how much, you might want to give a guarantee because you know that your service is so good that it's never going to break. And that's what, allows you to charge a higher service, or that you have bonded and insured employees. And you especially need that if you have a carpet cleaning business and you are sending people into somebody else's home, that they're bonded and insured. That's good business. But you can also charge more for your service. By the way, a carpet cleaning business is a great business because you get repeat business. Mrs. Brown uses you and she calls you back every 18 months or 12 months or 24 months. And then everybody who visits Mrs. Brown's home, her sisters, her sister-in-laws, her neighbors, friends, family, they all say, oh, your carpets are so clean, and who did you use? And so it perpetuates a lot of word of mouth. So actually, I love a carpet cleaning business. How does your price compare to direct and indirect competitors? Are you going to be higher than or on par? And can you be profitable at your chosen price? And some of you who might be inventing an app or a digital service, you can afford to give it away for free if your advertisers are going to be paying for you to host that website. So you just have to make money. Doesn't mean you have to charge for the service if somebody else is paying for it. So think about those things. How will you promote your product or service? And how will you reach your target audience? Now, to promote it, you can use very targeted media, which is direct mail, local radio. Remember that WeatherTech, which is a local Illinois company, it's out in Bolingbrook, they did their whole business initially by just advertising. They might have done it on several stations during drive time, but I used to hear their ads nonstop when they were brand new on WBBM. Either it's on AM and FM, 780 or 105.9. And they used it just during drive time and on billboards when you're stuck in traffic on the Kennedy, on the Eisenhower, on I-55. So, you know, that was a targeted audience when you were in your car and it was raining or sleeting or leaves were falling and there was a bunch of stuff you were dragging into your car. What better way to hear a message? Don't you want to keep your car nice and clean? So that's targeted, and you can buy radio very locally. There's also, you can buy billboards locally, and you can even buy magazines and newspapers locally. Like when you buy the Tribune, you can buy oftentimes a part of the circulation. So if you're on the north side of Chicago or in Cook County, you're advertising to customers who get the Tribune in Cook County versus if you live way south or way west in Illinois. And then, but it costs money. You know, you should be looking into Google AdWords. Google AdWords are very effective, and they used to be more cost efficient than they are now because so many of us just, you know, there's no such things more as yellow pages. You just look it up in Google, you know, coffee shop near me, dry cleaner near me, Bed Bath & Beyond near me. But Google AdWords, and that's a bidding competition where, but you can set a limit. So if you want to pay $1, which is the most that any of your competitors are showing, but you only spend $10 a day, you know, you can be ranked #1 in a Google search for the first 10 hits. But there's also e-newsletters, and that's a great way to develop your clientele and make for loyal customers, as long as you make it newsworthy in addition to a marketing tool. But don't overlook Facebook. Lou Malnati's, which is a Chicago independently owned company. We all know what delicious pizza it makes. I also don't, you know, it's independently owned. I don't own stock in Lou Malnati's. But Lou Malnati's has developed such a strong presence on its Facebook page that it only advertises job openings via Facebook these days, because they feel that people who follow them online understand their values, understand their commitment to the community, and that they get a better grade of applicant because those applicants understand what Lou Malnati stands for. So don't underestimate, you know, e-newsletters, Facebook, Twitter. I don't know how much longer Twitter is going to last with what's going on these days, but that's another lecture. Develop a marketing plan. And, you know, you have to answer physical distribution questions. Where will your customers expect to find your product or service? And for a lot of people making a new product, Etsy's can be fabulous, an Amazon shop. You can have your own website. You know, it can start on Amazon and it sends them to your website then to look for it or to ship it. Direct to consumer. A lot of small businesses, hair care products, food products, they start on Amazon because it's easy to start selling there. The major retailers, the grocery stores, the Walgreens and the CVS's of America, which have a pretty good food distribution system too, the Quick Marts, the 7-Elevens, the independent ones. The independent ones might take you for a food, but the national chains, nobody's going to look at you until you can show that you have sales. And thank God it's Friday, which makes a hair care specialty products started online. And when they could show that they had plenty of sales, all of a sudden Target gave them a trial run. And then when they moved off the shelves at Target, then they were at all the Targets, then they got into CVS. So, you know, starting online with a small business on Amazon or Etsy is not bad at all. But think about also Coca-Cola. If I say, where would your customers expect to find you? I don't think you're ever more than 300 yards away from a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi, because you can buy them in I used to have a slide that would say where, and I would ask all the people, where do they think they can buy them? But you can buy them at a grocery store. Not only are the Coke products and Pepsis in the beverage aisle, but they're also at the checkout aisle. Like, God forbid you need a Coke before you get home. They're in gas stations and laundromats and university campuses and hospital waiting rooms. And in a lot of times companies get them in their offices because somebody else has the distribution. I don't think you're ever that far away from a Coke or a Pepsi, but you have to think about how you will get your products distributed. Will you need a warehouse distribution system like McKesson or one of their competitors where, you ship to one place? Because if you've ever noticed those big containers at Walgreens or a CVS, they don't want to take a case of 24 items or 12 items for their shelf if they only need 2 or 3. And so they go to a distribution center, and then somebody fills those big plastic bins, those Rubbermaid bins, and that's what gets shipped to a Walgreens or a CVS. And do you know who your suppliers will be? And this is very, very important. Never rely on just a sole supplier. They may be the best supplier. They may make the best raw ingredients or components, and they may be the cheapest, but never rely on one, because the day will come when they have a fire, a flood, some natural disaster where their roof caved in from the snow, and they will not be able to send you raw materials. Look at what happened during COVID when we were so reliant on getting chips from China and other countries. And now the Biden administration is trying to make chip development here in America so that we're not penalized. Look at even masks. They couldn't get masks because all of the world was shut down. So really, mark my words, you always want to know your suppliers, and you want multiple. You might focus heavily on using 2 or 3, but you want to know that 4th and 5th supplier just in case. Your technology requirements, what equipment software, what internet connectivity do you need? Do you need to give people smartphones or iPads? A lot of restaurants are taking orders now on iPads and sending them straight to the kitchen. So think about what you need for connectivity. And even now, a lot of delivery people, you sign on a smartphone that you received. ABT in Glenview, when they send you stuff, you sign on some, I don't know if it's an iPad or a phone, but you sign on some document with a finger that you've received it in good order. Think about personnel requirements, part-time, full-time, contract. Are you going to do background checks, bonding? When is someone actually a contractor? We're going to talk more about that in a minute. But first of all, if you have teenage children or nieces and nephews or neighbors, you can have part-time workers. And if they're your own children, you can pay them a salary for helping you with your website. They're probably better at it than you are. And you can pay them a salary, which is fully tax deductible, and an allowance is not. So put them to work. And even if they check invoices or they do inventory, did what the shipper sent you in raw materials? Is it what's in the boxes? Put your kids to work. Salaries are deductible, allowances are not. A contract worker has very specific rules, and you can get sued by the Department of Labor. There is a thing, and you can Google it, called a 1099 test. And a 1099 test says a contractor is really a contractor based on behavior control, financial control, the type of relationship. Think about your accountant or your lawyer. They're really contractors. You don't tell them how to do their work, when to do their work. You don't give them any equipment to do their work. So they are really the true sense of a contractor. But and there's always, Uber and Lyft and all those people are getting in trouble because, if you have to wear an Uber shirt, then they're telling you how to dress. So they have control over you. It's things like that that break, the rule that they're a contractor and not an employee. So look up a 1099 test. You can find the questions very easily. And that's how you know if somebody's a contractor. And if they are a contractor, pay them as a contractor. Resource requirements. What other resources do you need? You need a website. Does your website just have to be your name and address and the hours you're open and a little map how to get to your place? Do you need leave behinds? If you're an insurance agent, if you are something else, you need to leave me, if you're a printer, a small business printer, and you want to get other commercial business from businesses in your neighborhood, you need a leave behind. You need a physical office, which we've already talked about. Can you run the business out of the house, or do you need business space? Remember, Illinois and Chicago specifically has very strict rules about making food in your house. They have a cottage industry rule, which I think is only $1,000 that you can make in sales, or you need a commercial kitchen that's licensed and inspected. So that's why the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection exists. You can always make an office there, and they probably have live chats now. I don't know for certain, but that's a question for Stella when she comes back on. But if you're making a food product, you either need to make it at a co-packer and sell it that's already licensed to make food, or you need to know how to do it in a commercial kitchen. And there are commercial kitchens you can run by the hour here in Chicagoland. External requirements: an accountant, a lawyer, a cleaning service for the business. And also an insurance agent. You definitely, as soon as you have an office where you have people coming to you, even if it's just the mailman, you need a commercial insurance, so liability insurance. So think about what you need for commercial requirements. And then there's other resources. You need cloud computing. Microsoft Office sells a suite of services that's all in the cloud, so you can access your records no matter where you are. You don't have to be in the office. QuickBooks or something similar. Grasshoppers, and there's other services in addition to Grasshopper, and I own stock in none of these. Grasshopper is one of those services where if people call your office and you're out on the road and you're not in your office, it searches for you on your cell phone or your home phone. So that's one of those phone services that will find you where you are. Regis Office or WeWork or 1871, the co-working, those are all co-working spaces. Do you need iPads or smartphones? We've already talked about it, that a lot of restaurants are taking orders on them. GoDaddy or Namecheap or somebody that has your web address available. Because a lot of people buy just names and then the name you want is taken, and they make money by selling names that they've already just reserved, and they have their businesses, they have no business, they just make up names and buy, rockinenterprises.com. So think about that. Vistaprint is a great way to get cost-effective advertising materials and business cards and stationery. I don't own stock in them, but it was started by a small businessman who didn't want to pay a lot of money for business cards. And the way it works is it does gang printing. So, when it prints business cards, it's printing 50 other or 200 other business cards at the same time and just cutting them up and giving you 500 of yours and 199 other business owners their business cards. And then Google My Business is free. You definitely have to take it. And it's the one that shows you where the business is located, a phone number, and the days of operation, when you're open. That's when you get the message closing soon, when a fast food restaurant closes at 9 o'clock, etc. Also, don't forget, how are you going to take money? Are you going to use PayPal? Stripe, Google or Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, any of those pay things. Think about how you're going to take money. I actually went to a Foxtrot. I don't know if any of you have. And I was caught without, they only took credit cards or some kind of virtual pay off my phone. I hadn't activated Samsung Pay. I left my house with only a $10 bill. I went to buy a bread. And luckily, I convinced two men to pay for my bread on their credit card. And then they made change from my $10 bill. But it was embarrassing. But now I have Samsung Pay on my phone because I just left with phone and a $10 bill. So think about that. Operations and management. Who will be in charge of your business? Are you going to have a business partner? If you have a business partner, we'll talk more about that in a minute, but think about if you're going to be Mr. or Miss Inside and somebody else is going to be Mr. or Miss Outside. What special qualifications do you have? Do you have, you can have had a lifelong hobby and you're turning that into business. So say your whole life you were an accountant, but every summer you coached spring you coached Little League. And now you decide in your retirement, you want to set up a Little League camp. You definitely have the expertise to do it. So sometimes a hobby can be turned into a full-time business. When will you need to add employees? We talked about know the laws for adding employees. Know that in Illinois, you can't ask for salary history. You can't ask about age or any ethnic information or birthplace or origin of country or citizenship. You do have to say, can you provide me with a W-2 form or a green card, that they're legally, available to work in America, that you can ask for. But you can't ask where they were born or their ethnicity or if they have disability or anything about their gender identity. You can't ask their marital status or their family status or their pregnancy status or if they have kids at home. You can't ask about religion or home ownership or bankruptcy. There are a few very select things where you can ask for a credit score and legally pull a credit score, but there's very defined rules about that. And it's usually, do you work with highly confidential information and have access to bank accounts or cash for a company? So if you were a secretary, but you had access to $500 in petty cash at it was a construction company and you had access to petty cash, then they could pull a credit report for you. If you were going to work in a bank and you had all sorts of, access to sensitive information and social security numbers, et cetera. So there are times when you can ask, but if you're, not handling cash in any way, and you don't have access to any confidential information, you're working on a factory line, you do not have the right to ask information about their credit scores. Be familiar with Title VII, which is the Equal Opportunity Employment Law. It's called Title VII. And never give a client, potential hiree, a probationary period. You can give them that in your head. You can think, I am hiring you for a 30-day probation period, but never say it out loud. Because if somebody's a real loser and you want to get rid of them in 4 days or 5 days, if you said you've had a 30-day or a 90-day probationary period, they can construe that as an implied contract and you might be available to get sued. So you can think probationary period, but never say it out loud. Okay, continuing on operations and management, what salaries will you pay? Will you be training your employees, or what training will they require? Remember, if they're going to use one of those sophisticated POS systems, it takes training. Will you give drug tests, background checks, bond employees? Is it necessary? Depending if they go into people's home, you might be able to check their background. If they just work outside and they don't have access to steal anything, if you have a lawn care business, you might not need to do background checks. So find out the laws. That's why you need to understand them in your specific industry, and industry associations can help you with that information. We also want to talk about if you have a partner. If you have a partner, and this might come in a few slides, but I want to remember to tell this. If you have a partner, and I don't care if it's your spouse, your best friend since kindergarten, your next door neighbor that you've lived next to for 30 years, if you have a partner, make sure you have a buy-sell agreement in place as soon as you open the business, while the honeymoon is on and you're in love with each other, because things have a way of changing, and you want a buy-sell agreement. Say you always stay in love with your business partner. What if they get hit by a truck and they die suddenly? If you're not crazy about your business partner's wife or in-laws, do you really want them to own half your business? So a buy-sell agreement that's prearranged, then how to buy each other out before any questions arise. The other reason why you want in a buy-sell agreement, you also want a clause in there that says if you own 50% of the business equally, and you want to take the business in a new direction, but the partner doesn't, that you can use a third-party independent business arbitrator, and they can decide how to what's best for the business. And you want that in a buy-sell agreement. But think about the training you need and what kind of tests you're going to give and background checks for your employees. Sometimes it's just a vision test if they're going to be driving a truck and you own the truck. Who will manage the business, the day-to-day operations, the long-term finances? How will you process and record sales? You want to make sure that nobody's stealing from you, especially if you have a cash-operated business. Does your business, and fewer businesses nowadays are cash operated because so many people went to credit cards during the pandemic when there was no loose change around. Does your business have special or local or federal regulations? Remember, if you have a car repair place, there's certain rules about how you get rid of spent oil and other materials. And then in Illinois, there is no sales on services, but there are on products. So if you had an auto repair business, you would not charge sales tax on labor, but you would for the new tires or the carburetor or the oil that you're putting in an oil change or the oil filter. So those are special requirements. Do you need to develop a statement of work in your business when you're doing a proposal for your would-be customer, or is it a request for a project proposal if you're selling to the government? And don't underestimate selling to the government. The government just buys about everything under the sun. So even if you're making a new, delicious, vegan or gluten-free pancake mix, the government might want it because they might have soldiers who need gluten-free or vegan pancake mix. And there is a group, there's two groups in Chicagoland. One is called a Small Business Development Center, SBDC, Small Business Development Center. You can just Google them in Illinois and you'll get a complete list. You'll put in a zip code and they'll tell you where the closest one is to where you live. And the other thing is called a PTAC, a Procurement Technical Assistance Center, PTAC in Illinois. And they will help you put you into a system so that when the government is collecting bids on pancake mix or nuts or bolts or something else that the government buys, you will get a notice and they will help you develop a bid, because developing a government bid is no easy thing, especially when you do it initially, but it can be a very lucrative business. So how will you record your sales? How will you process them, and federal regulations? Who will be in charge of inventory and inventory control measures? You want them in place so that people, especially if you do have a cash business, a quick mark, a dry cleaner where people might pay cash, people are, if you're not there, you don't want people stealing from you. So you have to have a way to manage those things. Also, even expiration dates, that's part of inventory control. If you're selling food, you need to rotate your inventory so first in is the first out, so that you're not left with food that you have to waste. And that is a huge problem with restaurants. That's why I hate when people want to start a restaurant, especially because there's so much food waste. In Chicago, if there is a blizzard and I have a dress shop, all right, you have a date on the weekend, it's Tuesday. There's no traffic Tuesday or Wednesday because people are digging out. Maybe Thursday, they start to see light. They can come in Thursday afternoon and still buy a dress for Friday night or Saturday night. But if I have a restaurant and there was a blizzard Tuesday and nobody came in Tuesday or Wednesday, by Thursday, I pretty much have to throw out any food I made. So we either have a very limited menu or know how to give your food that's about to expire to the food depository. So be careful if you have food, because you need inventory, good inventory control measures. And if you are manufacturing food and you are making it yourself, you need a HACCP plan, which is a hazardous analysis, critical control points, so that God forbid if you used, a lot of times there's lettuce recalls or some such things. And I want to say it's called, there's that, and it's a Chicago company, I can't think of the name of it, but they sell salads out of a coin operated machine, a credit card operated machine. If they use salad that has listeria on it or E. coli, they have to be able to know each salad that had that lettuce in it so that they can take it out of circulation. So know your rules and regulations and know how to track what you're selling. And then this is on operations. Choose the correct type of entity. It has to do with your liability and your tax exposure. Make sure you talk to your lawyer and your accountant. We already discussed the partnership agreement. I knew it was in here somewhere, but that's very, very important. And then general liability, like I said, is just if somebody trips walking up on your walk to give you the mail, it's the mailman. Workman's comp, as soon as you have one employee that's not a relative. So if it's you and your wife and you have your kids working, you don't need workman's comp. But when you hire the neighbor next door to help you with shipping and handling, as soon as you have one employee, you need workman's comp. Errors and omissions is a special type of insurance that you need if you're a professional company, an architect, a lawyer, an accountant. So that's a very specialized type of insurance. And then key employee insurance is after you're up and running and you're making a lot of money. Say you have one partner and he's Mr. Inside and you're Miss Outside and you do all the selling. It might not be important for you to have key insurance on him, key employee insurance, because if he dies, you can hire an accountant. But if you get laid up in a car accident or you can't work for several months, or God forbid you die, a key employee insurance gives him enough money to hire independent workers to work and a headhunter to replace you. And if you're doing all the sales, you might be so valuable that you need key insurance once the business is really making money. So you need a good, trusted insurance agent. The biggest mistakes is underestimating startup costs and underestimating, I didn't realize this isn't on the slide, the length of the sales cycle. So startup costs, it always costs much, much more than you anticipate. And the length of sales, cycle, how long it takes you to start getting customers, especially if you sell something technical or very expensive. If you are making hand knit mittens and you're selling them on Etsy, your startup costs aren't so big because the price of yarn and how long it takes you to make a pair of mittens. By the way, we're going to talk about it in a minute in financial planning, but if you are making all the goods yourselves, if it's craft, and you don't know how much to charge for your labor, charge at least $15 an hour, because that's minimum wage in Chicagoland. But underestimating startup costs is and the length of the sales cycle is a big problem. Have you prepared a break-even analysis? That is another chart that I've given BACP in Excel. Both that and the cash flow that's mentioned below, save those as the master templates, so that if you make a mistake and you copy something incorrectly from one cell to another, you can go back and look at the formula. But break even tells you exactly when total costs equal total revenue. You're not making money, but you're not bleeding cash. And that's the first point as an entrepreneur you try to get to, where you are finally, not bleeding cash. And you have to estimate your initial year of sales and, be relatively conservative, not so conservative that no bank wants to give you money. It's like, why are you in business? But don't, it is better to not overpromise, and it is better to overdeliver. And then monthly cash flow, there's a handout in that too. And the trick with monthly cash flow, it lists all your money coming in, all the different streams. Like if you sell online at a store, at farmers markets, etc. There's a line for cash coming in for each line of revenue. And then there's a line for all the expenses going out. It is much easier to fill in your expenses first and then back into your revenues, because you may not know what your revenues will be, but you know what the expenses are, because a lot of them are fixed. Rent, your phone, insurance, a lot of them are fixed expenses. And then does your business have seasonality? And almost all businesses do. Halloween candy, which comes out as soon as Labor Day is over, that Halloween candy is made in the spring, in March and April and May, so that it's ready for delivery. They start getting the raw materials and making it so that it's delivered in the summer and it goes on the shelf as soon as Labor Day is over. So candy, television, clothes, tax refunds, all affect seasonality. Do you have a big ticket item where people are going to start buying you as soon as they get their tax refund in February, March, etc.? So think about your seasonality. Swimsuits, there's the summer season, but there's also the winter, I go to a warm location selling season. Landscaping has 5 seasons. It's summer, grass, fall, leaves, winter, snow. I also include spring is planting, but I include the 5th season, which is Christmas decorating, especially if you can go and endear yourself in a neighborhood that has big houses that are maybe owned by people where they both work outside the house and nobody has time to do it, or seniors who still want to decorate but don't want to get on a ladder anymore. So think about seasonality and how much it will cost to open or expand your business. And in the business cash flow, there is a column for startup expenses. What are your personal financial monthly expenses? Know how much you need to keep your head above water. There is nothing wrong with you working on your business and taking a job at a Target or a Walmart or any place just to keep a roof over your head and to stay current with your own private bills as you build your business. Do you have a nest egg? Do you have a working spouse? How much money can you invest? Is there financial support from other family members? But remember, it's a way to alienate your family and friends so that nobody talks to you at Thanksgiving. So, try not to ever take money from family and friends. Can you do crowdfunding? Can you do Kickstarter or Indiegogo or one of those types of, where you're going to promise a product and they give you money up front? And that's how you raise money. But you definitely need to invest some of your own money. I just saw a business plan and I haven't finished reading it, so I haven't talked to the client yet. But they're not investing one penny. Nobody's going to give you money if you're not putting some skin in the game. It's a joke, and these are educated, people, and they're showing that they're not contributing a penny. Ha ha ha. Nobody, even a bank won't give you money if you don't have skin in the game. And by the way, I do love an SBA loan. But in an SBA loan, you can only spend 10% on the build out. So if you borrow $50,000, and they have special loans that are easier to get, $50,000 and less, and where they only secure the business assets over $50,000, they can attach your home. And if you own your home with your spouse, they may not want to give up the family house. But if you say you get a $20,000 SBA loan, only $2,000 of that could be used for the build out. They really want you to be able to put the key in the door and be able to start making sales. So a word about that. But think about how you're going to finance this business and support yourself till the business is really up and running and making a decent income. And then, do you have collateral for a traditional loan? Can you get financing terms from your vendors? A lot of times, if you're a startup, you can get net 45 or net 60, where you don't have to pay for the raw materials or the goods for 60 days instead of 30 days. Can you get a cosigner for a loan? Do you need one? Do you have a good credit score? A lot of credit cards now give you your credit score themselves, but this is the one that's really free. It shows you your credit report, but it doesn't give you a score. If you pay for a score, it's about $20. But, Chase, Discover, Visa, a lot of those companies have versions of their card now where you automatically get a credit score. We have a Bank of America card that gives us a credit score, but this is the one that's really free, not men in tights. You don't see the men in tights anymore since companies started to give you your credit report. Also, if your credit is a little low and you want to boost it before you start looking for a loan, look at Experian Boost, which is a way that can boost your credit score. Not a ton, but sometimes enough to make it more desirable. So if you are going to do a loan, make sure you know how you're going to use the loan. So if you're asking for $20,000, you can say, I need $15,000 to buy, merchandise for the store and $5,000 to pay employees. Have measurable goals in your business plan that are specific, measurable, realistic, achievable, and time related. Their SMART goals include, because they want to just not say, oh, I'm going to sell everyone, or I'm going to make this much money. When are you going to make it? How are you going to make it? Whom are you going to sell to? When will you be at break even? And then include 1 year and 3 year goals. Be specific, market share objectives, revenue, profitability, things like that. When you're going to get a break even, when you're going to start making profits. And it's much in a business plan, especially if you're going for a loan or investors, it is much better to say, we will be operating in the red for 6 months, 8 months. Look at Bezos with Amazon. He operated in the red for years. And now look where he is today. So you look more believable and like you know what you're doing if you're honest, and if you make up pie in the sky crazy numbers that are ridiculous. So, it is better to show the truth and look like you know what you're doing, and never be afraid if you're pitching to say, that's a great question. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer, because I'll have to get back to you. That is a better thing than making up something that you really don't know that's going to trip you up later. So do that. The other thing is when you do a business plan, especially if I have any high tech people listening or industry specific people, don't use acronyms. They may mean a lot of things to you. Like, we all know that ASAP means as soon as possible, but I wouldn't even use that in a business plan. And especially, like I said, if it's technical information, jargon, because if you're going for investors and they don't know what the acronym is, they will either tell you it's too early, it's too late, it's not in my space, I don't invest. When they're really saying, I don't know what you're talking about, I don't want to look stupid, so I'm not going to give you money. Oh, and this is how to find me. There. So now I couldn't see chat because I couldn't figure out how to open it. I'm going to open chat. And if we want to have questions, let me see. Let me go by and I'll try to answer them. Hold on, let me go to the beginning. So good morning. Morning. Yes, it is recorded. It's on their website. And it's loaded to YouTube. It's posted on YouTube. I'm just looking. Daycare centers have I'm noticing somebody wrote from a daycare, they have very specific legal rules and inspections. So God bless you if you've done a daycare center, because that's a hard gate. If you do want to open up a daycare center, go to the Women's Business Development Center. It's on Michigan Avenue, because they specialize in helping people open up daycare centers. Really, it's very tricky. And they are the experts in the city. And that is a small business development center as well. Just going. At one point, you need to rent a commercial space. When you make candles, it's whenever you can't do it in your house or your basement anymore. That's, there's not, I don't believe there's any restrictions in the city, but BACP would really be the experts about making candles in your home, especially if you sell them at craft fairs or online. But you probably need a license. I'm just going. Oh, the executive summary. So the executive summary is just a few paragraphs that sort of answers the who, what, why, what, how, and when of your business, where it is, what you're selling, what kind of business it is, what kind of legal structure, the name, the location. And you write it last because you've answered all those questions when you've done the rest of the business plan about what you're selling, how you're selling, where you're selling, how you expect to make sales. So it goes on the first, after your cover sheet, and then after the index, but then you write it last, but it goes up front. Can you put my information? My information is on the last page. Oh, the home business square foot. All right. So if you have a home office, say you are what do they call them? An organizing consultant. So you just go to somebody, I could really use you. But if you are an organizational consultant for homes, so people utilize their space better, and sort of like that coda where, does it give you joy? Have you used it? Throw it out. So say you have a home office, you live in a 2,000 square foot apartment or home or condo, and your office takes up 200 square feet. It's in a spare bedroom. You can legally deduct from your income tax, 10% of your housing costs, electricity, heating, your mortgage, use an accountant to do it, but it's part of running your business. And you can even take off mileage as long as you keep a mileage log. And they probably have mileage logs apps now. They also used to have a little booklet that you would buy at an office supply store where every time you'd go to drive a client, you would record your starting mileage and your ending mileage. And then that number of miles you can tax by the IRS, whatever the IRS mileage expenses for that year per mile. I think it's about 60 odd cents now in this year. But use your accountant to help you, but you can legally take off some of your housing expenses if it's a home-based business. There was a slide on the elements of a business plan. Oh, those slides are going to be posted as well. So, but I can tell you what's in there. Hold on, I don't know how to open up the slides now that, like I said, I couldn't see the questions. But it's the executive summary. Hold on. And then it's the executive summary. Hold on. The business description, the product or service description, the marketing plan, the operations and management plan, and the financial plan. But like I said, those slides will be posted. I don't know what a Browner operator is. If EM, Eric Martinez, who wrote about a Browner operator, you can, I don't know, that's a question for an insurance agent. If you're a sole proprietor and you're the only employee, I don't know if you can buy key employee insurance. You might just have to buy life insurance. If you're an owner or operator, you might just need, and it's just you in the business, you own a truck and you travel from Chicago to California to New York, you might just need huge life insurance. You need an insurance agent. And talk to the great way to find a great insurance agent for a small business is to talk to other small business owners and see who they use, and get a recommendation. Same thing for an accountant and an attorney. You need a business license if you're starting to actually have revenue. You can double check with the Department of Business Affairs, but if you're just in the planning stage and you got an FEIN number, but you have no revenue, you might have to file income taxes that say you're not doing anything. So it's all zeros, it's easy to do, but I don't know if you need a business license. I don't believe you do because you're not selling anything to anyone. There's no liability. Oh, the screen, the last slide that they're posting, I will try to go back and see if I can. Don't know where it went to. But my contact information is on that last slide, and the last slide, all the slides are posted, and it's posted. Stella will tell us when we're done, where if it's part of the YouTube audio portion, or if it's somewhere on the Business Affairs website. But my email address is dxrockin. The X is just thrown in there. My name is Donna Rockin, but D Rockin was taken. dxrockin, ROCKIN @gmail.com. No, you still need a business plan. You need it for you, if for anybody else, just so that if you just sell on Etsy, you need the business plan just to really clarify who your target audience is. It women 18 to 54, or is it really for homeowners, 25 to 50, or is it for grandmothers to buy for their grandchildren? So you sort of really still need a business plan. Thank you. You're welcome for the information. How can I start my financials from scratch? Start with your expenses first, because you're more likely to know your expenses and back into your revenues. Okay, I think I answered everything. Now, I don't know. She stopped the video, so I can't repost my the last slide, but like I said, she's going to post the slides. And are you there, Stella?
Yes, I'm here. Which video? Because I'm not controlling the slides. You were controlling them.
Well, they disappeared and oh, there they are. Can somebody see them now?
Yeah, they're there.
All right, good. Don't, like I said, something happened this time. So anyhow, there's my email address, but you post all the handouts I gave Miss Cantino, don't you?
Yes, they're emailed out.
Yeah,
after
all
the
right, so
webinar.
everybody will get them. Yeah, there's a whole list of handouts and everybody who signed in today will get them. So there's no mystery. And if I do get a lot of mail, if I don't answer you right away, just write a second time and just write, lecture, this plan lecture in the headline. So I know it's important and not another coupon from Bed Bath and Beyond or some such place or what's on sale at Walgreens. Any other questions? Oh, the consulting place for daycare center is the Women's Business Development Center, and it's on Michigan Avenue. I want to say it's 8 South Michigan, but I'm not 100% positive, but it's Women's Business Development Center. Oh, there's questions in Q&A. All right, so let me just see if there's anything else. All right, let me look at Q&A and see if, all right. There is a recording. Should the business plan mention, you can mention the suppliers are, or you can just say I have multiple suppliers, but if it's a really well-recognized supplier, that makes you more credible, you can, if you're McKesson or somebody is your supplier, you can mention them, sure. Anything that helps with credibility. Oh, a mobile notary business. Interesting. I would say, you need a business planning, get your Google space and start going in small business areas, go to communities and just walk around and hand out business cards because you'd be surprised how many times you need a notary. My information is posted. I would say you probably talk to your insurance agent for your mobile insurance notary business, because you might need to purchase some kind of insurance, and I'm not equipped to discuss that. So hopefully, have I answered everything with 4 minutes to spare? Oh, where do you get a proper buy-sell agreement? You need an attorney to help you with one. And the class was recorded, so you can find it on their YouTube channel. But a buy-sell agreement, you can look to see if there's any online or in a library. If you go to one with a good reference department, they can help you, and you might be able to find a sample one, but you really need an attorney to help you draw it up. Glad you found this helpful. Anything else? Okay. Stella, if you want to give them one more reminder about your special program.
Yes, thank you, Donna, for today's presentation. I hope all of our attendees received the much needed information. If you are a part of the BACP Entrepreneur Certificate Program, you can get credit for joining this webinar by sending an email to bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. Again, that's BACP@cityofchicago.org. To learn more about our upcoming program, please visit chicago.gov/business education. Again, that's chicago.gov/business education. And thank you again, Donna, for today's presentation.
It
And
was
have a
my
great
pleasure,
weekend.
always fun.